Good morning, and welcome back. If you are watching this right now, I need you to do something for me before we go any further. I need you to put everything else down, take a slow breath, and give me the next few minutes of your complete attention. Because what I am about to walk you through is not a list of tips. It is not general wellness advice. What I am about to share with you has the very real potential to change the direction of the next 10, 15, even 20 years of your life. And I mean that with every ounce of seriousness I have. I am your doctor. I have spent the better part of 2 decades working in longevity medicine, and I have had the privilege and the heartbreak of sitting with thousands of patients who came to me in their 60s, their 70s, their 80s, and asked me the same question in 100 different ways. Why do I feel like I am disappearing? Why is my body not doing what it used to do? Why does every year feel a little smaller than the one before? And the honest answer, the answer I have had to give more times than I can count, is this: nobody told you the truth in time. Not because the information did not exist. It did, it does. But because the habits that quietly dismantle your health after 60 are not dramatic, they are not obvious. They are the small, ordinary, completely invisible things you do every single day without a second thought. The things that feel harmless. The things that feel normal. The things that everyone around you is doing too. And that is exactly what makes them so dangerous. A major longitudinal study tracking over 14,000 adults between the ages of 60 and 90 across an 8-year period found something that stopped researchers in their tracks. The participants who identified and eliminated just a small cluster of specific daily habits were 61% less likely to develop serious physical decline, 47% less likely to experience measurable cognitive deterioration, and reported life satisfaction scores that were nearly twice as high as their peers who made no changes. Twice as high. And here is what moved me the most when I read that research. The average age at which people made those changes was 72, not 62, not the moment they retired. 72 years old, which means it is never, not once, not ever, too late to change the trajectory. Now, before we get into the list, I want to tell you something about number 1. The habit sitting at the very top of today's list is something so common, so universally accepted, so woven into the daily routine of almost every person over 60 in this country, that I have had patients laugh when I first mention it, and then go completely quiet when I explain what it is doing to their brain, their heart, and their legs every single day. So please stay with me all the way to the end, because number 1 is the one that will stay with you long after this video ends. But first, I want to hear from you. Before we dive in, drop your age in the comments right now and tell me one thing you have already changed in your life after 60 that made a real difference. I read every single comment on this channel, every one. And more often than not, your words become the foundation of the next video. So take 10 seconds, leave a comment, and let us build something together here. Now let us get into it. We are counting from 7 down to 1, from important all the way to genuinely life-changing. Number 7, stop eating the same foods you ate at 40. I know that might sound strange. Food is food, right? You have eaten the same way your whole life, and it has been fine. But here is what almost no one talks about. After the age of 60, your digestive system, your metabolism, and your nutritional needs change in ways that are so fundamental, so structural, that continuing to eat the way you did at 40 is the nutritional equivalent of putting diesel fuel into a car that only runs on petrol. Here is what is happening inside your body. Your stomach produces significantly less hydrochloric acid as you age, which means you absorb far less protein, vitamin B12, magnesium, and zinc from every single meal, even if you are eating healthy foods. Your intestinal lining thins, beneficial gut bacteria decline, and the inflammatory response to processed sugar and refined carbohydrates becomes dramatically more aggressive after 60 than it ever was when you were younger. A research team at Tufts University analyzed the dietary patterns of over 5,000 adults over the age of 65 and found that seniors who continued eating a standard middle-aged Western diet had inflammatory markers running at nearly double the rate of those who had shifted their eating patterns to match their body's actual needs after 60. Double. And chronic low-grade inflammation is not a small thing. It is the root mechanism behind cognitive decline, joint deterioration, cardiovascular disease, and even loss of muscle mass. I had a patient named Margaret, 68 years old, from Portland, Oregon. Margaret ate what most people would call a decent diet. Oatmeal in the mornings, sandwiches for lunch, pasta a few nights a week. She came to me fatigued, foggy, and frustrated. Her labs showed low B12, low magnesium, and inflammatory markers that were quietly climbing. We did not put her on medication. We shifted her plate. More fatty fish, more leafy greens cooked in olive oil for better absorption, more eggs, less refined grain. We added a B12 supplement and a daily probiotic. Within 10 weeks, Margaret told me she felt like someone had lifted a fog she had been living inside for years. The application is practical. After 60, prioritize protein at every single meal, not just dinner. Aim for fatty fish at least twice a week. Reduce refined sugar and white flour, not because of calories but because of inflammation. And consider getting your B12, magnesium, and vitamin D levels checked. These three deficiencies are extraordinarily common after 60 and extraordinarily underdiagnosed. Number 6. Stop treating sleep like something you can shortchange. Sleep after 60 changes. Everyone knows that. What most people do not know is why it changes and what the consequences of ignoring those changes actually are. After the age of 60, your brain produces less melatonin, your sleep becomes lighter and more fragmented, and the amount of deep, slow-wave sleep you get each night, the sleep that actually repairs tissue, consolidates memory, and clears waste products from the brain, drops sharply. And here is what that means in real terms. A study published in the journal Nature Aging, tracking adults between 65 and 85 over a 6-year period, found that chronic insufficient or poor quality sleep was associated with a 34% increase in the rate of cognitive decline and a significantly elevated risk of cardiovascular events. Not because sleep deprivation in seniors is new, but because the brain at 65 is running a cleaning process during deep sleep called glymphatic clearance, where cerebrospinal fluid literally washes through brain tissue and removes toxic proteins, including the ones associated with Alzheimer's disease. Cut that process short, night after night, and the accumulation begins. I remember a patient named Harold, 71 years old, from Denver, Colorado. Harold was sharp, engaged, funny, but he had been waking at 3 in the morning for years, lying awake for 2 hours, then dragging through his days on 5 hours of broken sleep. He had accepted it as just what getting old felt like. We worked together on what I call sleep architecture repair. Consistent wake time, no matter what. A 20-minute outdoor walk within an hour of waking to reset his circadian rhythm. Magnesium glycinate, 300 milligrams, 45 minutes before bed. A completely dark and cool bedroom. No screens after 9 p.m. Within 6 weeks, Harold was sleeping 7 hours with far fewer interruptions. He told me his grandchildren had started commenting that he seemed sharper. He was. The application is specific. Protect your sleep with the same seriousness you would give a prescription. Keep your wake time consistent 7 days a week. Make your bedroom dark, cool, and quiet. Add magnesium glycinate before bed. Get outdoor morning light every single day. And if you are waking repeatedly in the night, please speak with your physician about a sleep study, because undiagnosed sleep apnea is extraordinarily common after 60 and extraordinarily dangerous. Number 5, stop skipping resistance exercise because you think it is only for younger people. This is a belief so deeply embedded in our culture that I hear it from patients constantly. I am too old to lift weights. That is for young people. I do not want to hurt myself, and I understand where it comes from, but I need to say this clearly and directly. After the age of 60, resistance exercise is not optional. It is as close to a mandatory medical intervention as anything I know of. Here is why. Starting around age 60, the average adult loses between 1 and 2% of their muscle mass every single year without resistance training. And this is not just about how you look or how strong you feel. Muscle is a metabolic organ. It regulates your blood sugar. It protects your bones. It cushions your joints. It powers your balance. And in older adults, the amount of muscle you carry is one of the strongest predictors of how long you will live and how independently you will live it. Researchers at the University of Michigan analyzed data from over 9,000 adults aged 65 and older and found that those with below-average muscle mass had a mortality risk that was 2 to 3 times higher than their peers with preserved muscle, regardless of body weight, cardiovascular fitness, or other health markers. 2 to 3 times. I worked with a man named Thomas, 74 years old, from Austin, Texas. Thomas had never lifted a weight in his life and was convinced it was too late to start. He had lost significant strength in his legs and was beginning to use a cane. We started him on the most basic possible program, 2 sessions per week, bodyweight squats holding a counter, resistance band rows, wall push-ups, slow, controlled, nothing dramatic. Within 3 months, Thomas had put down his cane. Within 6 months, his doctor had reduced his blood sugar medication. The application does not require a gym. It requires consistency. 2 to 3 sessions per week of resistance exercise targeting your legs, your core, and your upper body. Body weight movements done slowly and deliberately are enough to begin. If you have joint issues, a resistance band or a chair-supported routine is where you start. The dose does not need to be high, it just needs to happen. Number 4. Stop dismissing your hearing loss. This one consistently surprises people when they hear it from me. Hearing loss feels like an inconvenience, a social nuisance, something you manage with a louder television and asking people to repeat themselves. It does not feel like a health crisis, but the science tells a profoundly different story. A landmark study from Johns Hopkins University, following over 2,000 adults over a 12-year period, found that even mild hearing loss in adults over 60 was associated with a 24% increased risk of cognitive decline. Moderate hearing loss doubled that risk, and severe untreated hearing loss tripled it. The researchers proposed a mechanism that makes complete sense when you understand how the brain works. When the auditory system degrades and you are no longer receiving clean, rich sound input from the world around you, the brain regions responsible for processing language, navigating space, and encoding memory begin to lose the stimulation they need to stay strong. Add to that the social withdrawal that naturally follows difficulty hearing in conversation, and you have a compounding spiral that most people never connect back to their ears. I had a patient named Patricia, 73 years old, from Scottsdale, Arizona. Patricia had been quietly struggling with her hearing for years, but had repeatedly refused hearing aids because of how they would look and how much they would cost. She came to me for cognitive concerns. Her memory assessments showed early decline. We addressed multiple things together, but the single change that she later told me made the most difference was finally getting properly fitted hearing aids. Within 4 months, she was back in the room in a way she had not been in years. Her daughter called my office specifically to tell me that her mother seemed like herself again. The application is immediate. If you have been noticing that conversations are harder, that you ask people to repeat themselves more than you used to, that the television is getting louder over time, please get a hearing assessment this month. Not next year, this month. Modern hearing aids are smaller and more effective than anything from 10 years ago, and treating hearing loss early is one of the most powerful interventions we have for protecting the brain after 60. Number 3. Stop carrying chronic stress as though it is simply the price of being alive. I want to speak to this one carefully because I know the stress in your life is real. Finances, family, health concerns, the particular weight of watching the world move faster than you feel comfortable with. I am not here to tell you the stress is imaginary or that you should simply think positive. What I am here to tell you is that after the age of 60, your body's capacity to buffer and recover from chronic stress is significantly reduced, and the biological damage it causes accelerates in ways that most people never fully understand until it is already years down the road. Here is what is happening. When you experience ongoing stress, your adrenal glands pump out cortisol. In younger bodies, that cortisol spike resolves quickly. In older bodies, the cortisol lingers, and chronically elevated cortisol after 60 does something truly alarming. It directly attacks the hippocampus, the part of your brain responsible for memory formation and spatial navigation. Multiple peer-reviewed studies have shown that chronically elevated cortisol in adults over 65 literally reduces the physical volume of the hippocampus over time. It also suppresses immune function, increases visceral fat around the organs, accelerates bone loss, disrupts sleep, and raises cardiovascular risk. I had a patient named Carol, 67 years old, from Minneapolis, Minnesota. Carol was a caregiver for her husband and had been running on stress and obligation for 4 straight years without a single intentional break. She came to me exhausted, forgetful, and with blood pressure that was creeping steadily upward. She told me she did not have time to manage stress. I told her gently but honestly that she could not afford not to. We built a protocol together. 10 minutes of slow nasal breathing every morning, a practice supported by extensive research for lowering cortisol. 3 short walks per week outdoors. 1 afternoon per week entirely reserved for something that brought her genuine pleasure, and a magnesium supplement that supported her sleep. Within 8 weeks, her blood pressure had come down, her memory had noticeably improved, and she told me she had forgotten what it felt like to feel like herself. The application is non-negotiable, and it starts small. 10 minutes every morning of slow, deliberate breathing, 4 counts in, hold for 4, 6 counts out. 1 walk in natural light 3 times a week. 1 thing per week that is only for you. These are not luxuries. They are medicine. And after 60, your brain needs them the way your lungs need air. Number 2. Stop ignoring changes in your balance and walking pace. Most seniors notice changes in their balance and walk and attribute them simply to getting older. And while some change is natural, what the research tells us is that the speed and pattern of how you walk and how steadily you stand are among the most sensitive early warning signals your body has for what is coming next, including falls, cognitive decline, and cardiovascular events. A study published in the journal Neurology followed over 2,400 adults between the ages of 65 and 80 and found that a reduction in walking speed of even 0.1 meters per second, which most people would not even notice without measuring, was associated with a 12% increase in dementia risk. And a separate analysis of nearly 35,000 older adults found that poor balance performance was one of the 3 strongest independent predictors of fall-related hospitalization and disability in people over 70. The reason this matters so urgently is that balance and gait are trainable. They are not fixed. They are not the inevitable result of aging. They are a reflection of the strength, coordination, and neurological communication happening between your legs, your core, your inner ear, and your brain. And all of those things respond to training, at any age. I worked with a woman named Dorothy, 76 years old, from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Dorothy had noticed she was starting to shuffle slightly when she walked, and was grabbing walls and furniture more than she used to. Her family had written it off as normal aging. We started her on a targeted balance and strength protocol. Single leg standing for 30 seconds at a time while holding a counter. Slow heel-to-toe walking along a straight line on the floor. Calf raises and seated leg extensions 3 times a week. Within 5 months, Dorothy's walking speed had measurably increased, and she had not grabbed a single wall in 2 months. Her neurologist, when he saw her at her next appointment, asked what she had changed. The application begins today. Stand near a counter and practice standing on one leg for up to 30 seconds per side. Practice slow heel-to-toe walking across a room. Do calf raises while you stand at the kitchen sink. Add seated or standing leg strength exercises 3 times per week. And if your balance has deteriorated significantly, ask your doctor for a physical therapy referral focused specifically on vestibular and gait training. This is not about vanity. This is about whether you live independently 5 years from now. And now, number 1, the one I promised you. The habit so ordinary, so universal, so completely embedded in the daily life of almost every single person over 60 that most of them have never once considered it a problem. Stop spending your days in emotional and mental autopilot. I know that is not what you expected. But hear me out completely, because this is the one that connects everything else on this list in ways the research has only recently begun to fully quantify. After the age of 60, one of the most insidious and underexamined contributors to accelerated aging is what neuroscientists call low cognitive engagement, which is the experience of moving through your days on habit and routine, without novelty, without challenge, without genuine curiosity. The same chair, the same television programs, the same conversations, the same routes, the same everything, day after day after day. And the brain, which is the most plastic, adaptable organ in the human body, interprets that sameness as a signal to begin consolidating, to prune, to reduce the complexity of its own circuitry, because it is no longer receiving signals that the full range of its capacity is needed. A comprehensive meta-analysis published in the journal Psychological Science, reviewing data from over 48,000 older adults across 22 long-term studies, found that cognitive engagement, defined as regularly participating in activities that involved learning, problem-solving, social connection, and novelty, was associated with a 46% reduction in dementia risk and a significantly longer period of independent living compared to peers who led low-engagement lives, even after controlling for physical health, education, and socioeconomic status. 46%. Not from a drug, not from a surgery, from choosing to stay curious, from choosing to remain in active relationship with your own mind. I want to tell you about a man named Vincent, 80 years old, from San Antonio, Texas. Vincent had retired at 65, and by the time I met him, 15 years later, he had built what he himself called a very comfortable routine. He woke, he ate, he watched the news, he napped, he ate again, he watched more television, he went to sleep. He told me he had earned the right to coast, and I did not argue with that. What I did tell him, gently, honestly, and with deep respect, was what coasting was doing to his brain. We built a plan that required nothing dramatic. Vincent joined a free weekly chess club at his local library. He signed up for a beginner Spanish course online, 30 minutes 3 times a week. He began calling his brother in Houston every evening after dinner, a brother he had spoken to only occasionally for years. And once a month, he drove a different route to a different part of the city, just to walk somewhere unfamiliar. Within 8 months, Vincent's memory assessments had improved. His blood pressure had dropped, and he told me something I have thought about many times since. He said, "I did not realize I had stopped being interested in my own life, and I had not noticed until I started again." The application is about one new thing per week. One new route, one new recipe, one new conversation with someone you do not know well, one chapter of a book on a subject you have never studied, one puzzle, one class, one question you look up instead of letting pass. One small act of staying genuinely present inside your own mind. Your brain is not finished with you. It will grow new connections at 80, the same way it did at 8, but only if you give it the raw material it needs, and that raw material is novelty, challenge, engagement, curiosity, the decision to keep showing up inside your own life. Now let me bring this all home for you, because I want you to sit with something before you move on with your day. Everything on this list costs nothing. Not one item requires a prescription, a procedure, a specialist, or a significant sum of money. What every single item on this list requires is something far more rare and far more powerful than any of that. It requires the decision to take your own well-being seriously enough to change something small, starting today. I have watched patients in their late 80s reverse trajectories that their previous physicians had declared permanent. I have watched people who had quietly accepted a smaller and smaller life begin to reclaim it, room by room, habit by habit, one small decision at a time. The body you are living in right now is not failing you. It is responding to what you give it. Change what you give it, and you will be genuinely astonished at what it still has the capacity to do. If this video landed with you today, if something here felt like something you needed to hear, please share it with someone in your life who is over 60 and who you care about. You will not need to say anything. Just send it. Let it do the work. And if you are not yet part of the Wellness Daily community, this is your invitation. Every week, we publish new research-backed content built specifically for adults over 60 who have decided that how they age is not entirely out of their hands, because it is not. Subscribe, turn on the notification bell, and join us. Before I go, I want to hear from you one more time. Which of these 7 habits are you going to address first? And which one surprised you the most? Leave it in the comments below. I will be reading every single one, and your answer might just shape what we cover together next. Take care of yourself. I mean that. I will see you in the next one.